Good morning, everyone. This is the block house. It was built by Floyd, my neighbor and friend. Floyd, take her away.
This house was built as a result of super boredom. I had recently retired and I didn't have enough to keep me busy, so I built a cabin. The material for this cabin is scrap wood from a crate manufacturer who made crates for large skyscraper type windows. It's blocks of 2x4 from 4 to 8 to 10 inches long, and there are about 6,000 blocks of wood in it. The foundation is just 2x6s with a plywood subfloor so that I could build the walls up. There's no glue in it, it's all nailed. Every single block has 2 nails in it, no matter the size of the block. This wall is 1 layer thick, and this wall and the opposite wall are 2 layers thick, so it's a 7-inch thick wall. The windows were throwaway windows from somebody's house they were renovating. The doors cost me $5 each. The brick is free, hauled off from a house site. The roofing was free, hauled off from a house site. The posts were free, I cut them here on the property. Wow. The house does not have water at the moment, it is electrified. And I collect rainwater to water Laura's shrubs, and in case we had a small fire, I have water to hopefully throw on it. The cabin is 20 by 24 feet, 480 square foot cabin. Has a fireplace. The rock are brought in from my job all over the U.S. The brick is out of a 1910 livery stable in Mineola, Texas. It has a small kitchen, a bathroom, and 1 large living room. However, I discovered that wasn't big enough when all the kids are down. Oh. So I built the mother-in-law room. It's 14 by 14. But since the mother-in-law lives here with me, when the kids come down, I turned it into my man cave.
Now, where did you get your slate?
It's salvaged from a house that was torn down. We put a deck on it because there's a creek down there you can hear after a rainfall, and it's on down the hill. And the wife didn't want me to block the view of the creek, so I put a huge window in the building. This door is from Terrell State Hospital when they tore one of their buildings down. It's probably a little over 100 years old. Your friends who are offended by my Confederate flag, I'm sorry, but my great-grandfather was at Gettysburg, and his father-in-law died there, so I honor them. So here's a big window out looking over the creek. This window, this door is actually a sealed-in window. This is from an 1873 railroad hotel in Terrell. Oh yeah, that's the original glass in it. Every piece of wood in this building is salvage. I didn't pay a penny for it, just had to haul it off of from a manufacturer's site. Got my books, got my radio, some of my military stuff. I worked for the Forest Service for years. I don't Well, this is one blind. And so I've got my Smoky Bear and this is a lookout tower on one of the national forests. They're all abandoned now. They use satellite imagery to know there's a fire. Those are cabinet doors. Salvaged from another home being torn down. And then I just put personal stuff over them. Use them as a background. It also keeps the wind from blowing through. There's no insulation in these walls, so it can get pretty chilly in the summertime. Well, the only thing it cost me was saw blades and nails. Every piece of material in it is salvaged. The cinder blocks that it sits on is salvaged. It's dimensional lumber. It's 2x6, 2x8, whatever. It's all packing crate. That's what it was. All this is packing crate. Every piece in here is salvaged from a industrial site that they were throwing away. I started out with this pattern of construction and found that it wasn't feasible, so I altered the construction from that point. The load-bearing walls, because the ceiling joists go across that way, they're 7 inches to hold the weight. This one is just 3.5 inches thick, and as the wood has dried up, you can see daylight through the walls. Not enough to let the rain in, but to just ventilate the room a little bit. Well, that was a tree house for a friend's child 20 years ago. We don't go up there anymore. It's a little risky. This was a natural clearing down here on my property. I did not have to cut any trees down to build the building. So I don't have an overhead light. We thought indirect light would be okay. Here we built little cabinets out of the same 2x4 scrap, but I wanted this corner to be even, and I had to fit it into that wall, so there was a hollow space here, and I just put my old antique tags over it. The breakfast bar is made from cedar logs cut off the property, and then ran through a planer, and then there's a finish on them. But this has become very popular. Now, when I started doing this, people burned cedar to clear the land. So Laura wanted a checkerboard deal here. My brother-in-law cut these blocks, and we stained half of them dark and half of them light. I did not put a sink in because we don't have running water here. To put one in, I just have to cut it out. These shelves are made from old pull drawers and cabinets. Those are doors from Terrell State Hospital when they tore a building down. The building was built around 1910, 1920. They are probably 100 pounds a piece, doors are. I still haven't finished. Here's a hole up to the top that I haven't finished sealing off. The ceiling is just little 1x4s off of packing crates. I put a deal there in case they ever wanted to shove boxes of clothes or whatever up there, but currently there's nothing stored up there. We put tin here to reflect the stove heat, catch it before and bring it back down. Over here on the walls, this pattern of overlapping blocks I turned inward and made a corner just like the outside corner to support that wall, and I put the tin around it to reflect the heat. That was just to protect the wood from sparks or the excess heat. And the mantelpiece is a big slab of cedar that was cut. It's just rough cut. Laura and I come down here and work puzzles every once in a while just to get away from the house. This is packing crate wood that we just put in at an odd angle to these. These are all packing crate for huge windows, and they were just being thrown away. That is a cottonwood round. I picked that up in 1989 when I worked at Solomon Ruins Museum in Farmington, New Mexico. and that's just a piece of the root system holding it up. I built this door. The hinges are over 100 years old. They're out of a produce house in Grants Lane, Texas. And then I put posters on the back to cover any crack in for the kids to see. These are all from the Forest Service when I worked with smoking. I worked in Utah and Oregon. So here's more doors for the little bathroom ceiling. We had a sewing machine that none of the kids wanted, so I cut it out, put a little sink in it, and have it drained out through the floor. There's no running water, so I bring bottles of water down to wash their hands. This piece of stained glass represents the Pony Express. That was a door, we just made a full window out of it. And these are some of my grandmother's chairs that came out of her house. They're well over 100 years old. I started out collecting the blocks of wood, and I realized I was going to have to start using them or they would rot. As I was building the walls, I was still going and picking up more scrap to bring and finish it out. If you look closely, you can see daylight coming through the wall over there, which is fine. The rain doesn't come through. Come down here when we have a crowd, when the kids want to come down, if the kids want to spend overnight.
And I see you have a composting toilet.
Yeah, it's an RV toilet. Well, one of these days I'll have water down here and I'll have a flush toilet. This little table came out of my grandmother's house. It is the side of an old icebox. I did not realize that until I was nearly 40 years old, what it was. There's hinge marks on the side. There's a hinge mark right there. It set up like this. It was an ice box. You put a chunk of ice in the top, it cooled everything below it. Well, when they got electricity, this became useless, and so they took it out. I guess you would say it was a coffee table for in front of a couch, but I put it there to keep the kids from running into it.
Well, you've done quite the job on this. This is so nice.
So with all the materials being free, the only thing I have invested in it is time and labor, and maybe $1,200 for the subflooring and the foundation, which I paid cash for before I discovered the source of all of this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have anything in it. That door is basically nailed shut. It could be put on hinges and more storage, but since we don't live here, we don't need storage space. All this up here could be storage, but there's nothing there. I just put that in case. We have this beam supported over a foundation block so that it won't sink or sag. And then I just built this because I could, and I wanted that space over that. They're surplus from a job site. Well, you know, if we had to live here, we could. I'd just keep adding on to it every time I got a load of scrap. This door handle is off of a World War II military trunk. And it folds down flat.
Lots of character in this home.
Lots of odds and ends, little pieces.
Well, this is very nice, very quaint.
At one time, we had spikes there to climb up to the treehouse, and I put the bottles there to keep the kids from running into it and poking themselves. You can see the rest of the spikes on it. Well, in the South, they made bottle trees. The women didn't have a lot of money for decoration, and they would take a smaller, sturdier tree, cut the limbs down, and stick different colored bottles on it like a Christmas tree.
I tell you what, there's a lot of character too in these trees around your property.
Well, I've just finished cleaning this, Debbie. I spent a solid month cutting brush. You can see how, if you don't keep it clean, what it becomes. I had a master electrician wire it for me, so I feel very comfortable with the wiring.
Yep.
I have gutters front and back just to collect rainwater.
You got some really nice windows, nice big
Oh, they were all throwaways.
for the view. They're perfect.
Well, it saved me from nailing 500 blocks. So we had a nice little deck out. I tied this building just where you could walk and get into it. They're just set up on throwaway cinder blocks and pieces of wood.
And it looks like you've collected quite a bit of water.
Well, it's obviously black from sitting there, but if I had a brush fire come up, I'd have a little something to fight it.
Oh.
That's the door.
Very
There were
neat.
two of them, but I could only get one on the truck when they were tearing the hotel down. In 1985, they tore down the 1873 Railroad Hotel and put up a service station. This is one
Wow.
of the front doors. And I never could get the brass off, so I quit trying. And in this window, I've still got two panes to replace. This one was broken out when I got it, and this one was broken when he was brush hogging and a rock came through and landed in there. So anyway, you can't see the creek right now, but in the winter it's visible and you can hear it running.
Well, as I told you before, seeing this cabin and the cabin you live in, I feel like I'm in the hill country.
Well, kind of wish we were. One thing that I really miss would be if there was a spring bubbling there, or if that creek was closer and I could hook up a generator to it.
Well, folks, that concludes our tour of the blockhouse. There's a lot of history in it, and it's very unique and charming, very charming. And Floyd has done a terrific job on it.